Alright, so on to the next roster review, and this will be for Halowing or Halowing, depending. So a little bit of background on this player. So their spending style, they've said, is pretty heavy. So a lot of Lightspeed bundles, Conquest Pass, Episode Pass, and I would imagine a few sort of Zeta packs as well along the way. So this all means that their account would be very accelerated, as we'll go on to in a second, and will have different bottlenecks to most other players, definitely free to play and light spenders. So this will be a different sort of review, I would say. In terms of their current plans, currently finishing off ships for Leviathan and working on Hondo, sort of generally focusing on resource GLs or economy GLs rather than just finishing off all of the Lightspeed bundles they've bought, which I think overall is a good strategy. Even though you're close to certain things, I think it quite often makes sense to go for the more valuable farms, just because you're going to be bottlenecked by Zetas anyway, which they've mentioned, and mods and Omicrons, so it makes sense to go for the high value stuff, even though it might take you a little bit longer. In terms of other information, they took a big break I think when the game first came out, so at the very start, 10 years ago potentially, and that means they've only been playing actively on the account for a total of about a year, even though the total time elapsed may be a bit longer. They're close to a lot of things, which they are, and they're wondering whether it's worth to ignore them or not. I think they'll probably have to, just to because of the sheer amount of things they are close to, as we'll go into it in a second, and looking to focus on new stuff because they'll just be buying the Lightspeed bundles anyway, and prefer to save up error currency for R10 just because that's the only place you can get it. I think that's a reasonable strategy. So yeah, let's jump into it. Okay, so yep, they have been playing for pretty much exactly a year actively. Of course, this will be a little bit, well, a lot longer if you're looking at how long ago they started the account, but this is really the most important part. GP 9.5 million. They did say in some messages with them that they grew in like over 4 million since starting the account up again, I think maybe around the time of the anniversary or maybe a bit before, and that might have even increased a bit. I am doing this review a couple of weeks after they submitted it, so pretty rapid growth. Their guild are 3x Legion, 477 million. They're already above average, pretty much on average actually, but I imagine would start to outstrip that average value, which I imagine they weren't when they first joined. So we'll maybe have a look at the guild as well. Mod score, mod quality, obviously this will be one of the limiting factors, because they can buy characters in GP essentially incredibly quickly, but not necessarily mods. So this is quite low, but it's completely understandable. This is what most sort of big Lightspeed bundle buying accounts would look like, and definitely highlights the direction they should be going in terms of farms, is really focusing on ones that will have a nice mod return. Guild raid score, so just over 100 million. They were doing the raids mostly every 6 days, sometimes every 7 days, so I've gone with a frequency of 6.5 days. Personal raid score 1.4 million. They are working on a few things, as they mentioned, like Hondo, that will increase this. So usually now that we're, I think, about 7 months into the raid, maybe a bit less, I'm not really focusing on a lot of raid teams, just because there's still a decent amount of time left. So in isolation, normally it would be fine to work on teams. My only concern with working on raid teams normally is that my guess is that most guilds, and specifically guilds that they're already in, won't be pushing the raid still. Maybe they might be, but most I think won't be, and for that reason it's not always that worth it to push for a higher score, which you could do yourself, but you would really need everyone to be pushing within the guild. But for an account like this that is growing quite rapidly and already focusing on raid type teams, it might be worth, if they are open to moving guilds, to focusing on increasing that raid score a little bit, just to get into a bigger guild and increase this Mark III raid currency, which will become very important because they're already at the point of getting most characters to relics, to be honest. So would really be wanting this to start to push those R8s and R9s in the account. That's going to be one of the main focuses and main bottlenecks, aside from Zetas and mods, would be getting those higher relics. So focusing on the raid might still be an option. In terms of their own performance, Chromium 3, I imagine this will start to increase quite considerably once they start getting everything online. I'm sure they can jump up into Erodium and even Kyber quite soon. Fleet, they currently, I had a quick check, don't have any of the legendary ships unlocked, but are very close to all of them. So once they get those online, I imagine they'll be able to hop straight to the top, and we'll discuss that in a bit. Colosseum rank, so top 10 every day, so they're maxing out era currency, and this figure will actually be higher because there's a whole load of like secondary sources of this on top of the 1,000 a day. So they'll be getting like is 8,000 from a 6-star mall. They'll be getting a fair chunk, I think, is it total 2,000 for every, what's it called, era challenge that runs every 2 weeks. So they'll be getting a chunk from that. They'll also be getting the extra from the tiers. So they won't be hurting for era currency. They have mentioned that they're saving it for R10, which I actually think is sensible, because as we've discussed, the bottleneck is going to be things like Zetas and mods. So, and they already have most of the characters at relics from Lightspeed bundles. So it doesn't necessarily hurt to farm up some of the older characters that they still need to work on the old-fashioned way without Lightspeed tokens, because it's not going to be the thing that slows them down. So if they want to be really mindful of maximizing R10s in the future, if they want to head in that direction, it makes sense maybe to just gear up the few characters they need to relic the old-fashioned way, as I call it, and then just save up that era currency for the R10s. As they quite rightly said, this is the only way currently of getting R10s. And I also was chatting with them, and I think they're also hoarding this era currency, which I also think is a good idea, instead of just cashing it in straight away in those R10s, because they're not at the point anyway to make use of getting characters to R10. They don't currently have that many R8s and R9s, so it makes sense to hoard it, see what happens with maybe changes to the era shipment store. Maybe they reduce the price. I don't know if that would be the case, but maybe they'll add other stuff. There's a lot of speculation that like R11 might be coming quite soon after R10, so I think it's definitely worthwhile hoarding until the point that you start to need R10s, and then just spending what you need to on those. In terms of other stuff, so crystal income is relatively low because of fleet rank, but I think that will be sorted quite soon. And of course they are a slightly heavier spender, so this is maybe not as important for, say, a free-to-play that would really rely on crystal income for progressing the account. Mark II is in a very good spot, but Mark III is something that could be improved, especially because focusing on those R8s and 9s, which you can get with Mark III, and even the R10 signal data, I think will be something this account will need to do. So I think trying to maximize this as early as possible would be a good idea. In terms of assault battles, so I think because they were very new back to the account after the break, they weren't too sure on exactly the challenge tiers, but I think knew that they had them all at least challenge tier 1. I had a quick look and sort of slightly estimated what the challenge tiers could be based on their roster. I imagine these are maybe slightly conservative and are maybe a little bit higher in reality. But again, this is maybe not the primary focus for an account like this. I think the ones that would be these two, getting that sort of R9 material. They already have R9 Jewel of the Fates, and I think pushing these to R9 at some point soon would also be a pretty good idea. None of the resource GLs yet, but that is something I think they're focusing on. So let's move over to the account. All right, so going to have a quick look at their roster here. I think it's going to be more helpful to go through all of the legendary requirements just because it's already quite a big roster, but we'll have a quick look. So the 3 GLs they have so far, I think, would be all through the Lightspeed bundles. Got them up to R7. All of the Zetas on already, which is good because I think Zetas are a bit of a bottleneck, and these would be the sort of things that when you are stuck on farms and Zetas and Omicrons would be then going back and sort of increasing the relics, especially these two. Both of them at R9 is a good option. Even you see a lot of R10 Rays and higher end Kyber and TW. It's a pretty good investment, very reliant on health. So yeah, pushing these relics up would be a good thing to do if you're stuck on other areas. Things like Jedi Knight Cal Kestis, which is good for the guild, and perhaps if you were to move guilds, this would be a thing new guilds would be looking at. R9 Padawan Obi-Wan, and I think Master Qui-Gon as well. We have the Leviathan R9s here. We have, actually, I always like to have a look at Conquest units. So I think they were able to pick up quite a few of the Conquest unit Lightspeed bundles, I think. So have Taron Malicos, Trench, Boba Fett, Darth Malgus, also have the ship as well, Maul, Tano, and this one wouldn't be through a Lightspeed bundle, but would have meant they have got it through Hard Mode Conquest, first time of asking, so that's pretty good. It probably means they joined or rejoined like 2 or 3 months ago. So yeah, that's very nice. That's something to look at because they will also be unlocking 7-star Maul Hatefield, so we'll have like an S tier team with them. So that will be a nightmare for people in Chromium GAC to go up against. So yeah, you pretty much just need to set that, and I imagine you're going to climb all the way to Kyber, but we'll see. Yeah, so mostly Lightspeed bundles. The only notable ones that are missing are Ben Solo and Ezra, because those are like very notable lifters for GLs, both technically for Rey but also for Ahsoka as well. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind. Is there anything? So they have Starkiller for that Stranger team, so I think getting Stranger up to relics, I imagine they're already doing that, would be a great shout because they've already got the Zetas and Omicrons that you need on them, and that will just be an unbearable team once Maul comes out. It's already pretty challenging even in like Kyber 1. Yeah, I would hate to be one of your opponents in Chromium GAC. So anything else? Yeah, so there's the Stranger. Most of this would just be like requirements, so R5 Night Troopers, Jabba requirements. I always point this out, but these, like thinking about Relic Delta and other just improving teams in general, once you unlock Jabba, taking like Chrysanthemum up to R8, maybe even R9, and Boushh as well is always a good shout. Working on Profundity, yeah, I don't think we're going to learn. there's too many. I think you've just about got all of them, all of the legacy. The ones you don't are mostly like the new characters, and some of the less needed, so like the Hondo requirements, some of the Ahsoka requirements as well, and some of the just not very needed characters. There's some decent ones in here, but you already have such a wide pool of relics that there's a lot of directions you can go into. So let's jump over to the journey guides. I have a lot bookmarked here, but we'll just jump straight into it. and talk about Jabba. So to be honest, they're very close to pretty much all journey guides. Jabba, they're working on Jedi Knight Luke, and apart from that, a couple of relics. This would definitely be, I think it already is, one of their big priorities, but really will be one of the more important ones to get just because of that Smuggler's Run 2 event. But they're pretty much there, so it's probably just a few weeks away at this point. I also just always check for Jedi Master Luke. Of course, this will be a Lightspeed token at the end of this month. This would be an example of one maybe not to go for, even though you will have all of the requirements by the end of this month once you unlock Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. I would put it slightly lower down the priority list just because it's not going to be getting you anything new. You should still be able to do CT3 of the ground water assault battle with just Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. I don't think you necessarily need Jedi Master Luke as well because you use him as the lead. So this would be very much if you happen to get a lot of Zetas or there's a lot of good packs, then maybe work on him, but definitely not a priority. There's more valuable ones to go for even though you're so close. So this is what you said you are working on at the moment, so I definitely agree with that decision. It doesn't matter that you're further away. The advantage is that these characters aren't in Lightspeed bundles, so you're not waiting around for them, and also it's nice to be able to work on them, put some gear, put some relics on them while you maybe catch up with Zetas and Omicrons elsewhere in your account. And the other good thing about this team is it doesn't really require conquest units, so no conquest units in the unlock. And in Hondo's team, so this is Pirate King Hondo, you don't need SM33. You can put him in there, but quite often even the optimal lineups don't have SM33, so he's very much not like Ben Solo, who is very much needed as a lifter. SM33 really isn't. It would be nice to get Maz just because you'll have another team, but that might be quite tricky. I imagine you have a few shards of Maz if you're able to unlock the Stranger, but you're probably not too close to 7 stars, so Maz may be a while away. But even still, the main advantage is Smuggler's Run 3, so quite quickly you should be able to knock off the 2 mod events, which will be really important for your roster, and the lower mod score that you have just due to all of the Lightspeed bundles that you're getting. So now you're making decent progress. I forget exactly which ones are which in terms of the farms, but I imagine you're able to refresh or even double refresh, and you're already having some up at 6 stars, some a little bit less. I think it's Captain Silvo Cantina, very possibly. And then aside from that, we're just looking at relics. So this would be, I think, before things like Peridia Patrol and like doing relics or Relic Delta, this would be the main R9 focus. So this guy, and this guy, all at R9. Yeah, so definitely agree with this being the main farming focus. Ahsoka, so another relatively new GL who you already have all of the relics at. You'll be getting R9 General Skywalker because of Hondo anyway, so just be a case of finishing off the relics. You're working on Peridia Patrol anyway, so really not that much more. The only thing going against Ahsoka is that you don't have Ezra yet, and might be quite a while until you do. I think Ezra now is in Proving Grounds, and you may well be doing the Conquest Plus pass and sort of accelerating it, I'm not sure. So it might not be too long until you're able to get Ezra. Maybe you're doing refreshes, I don't know, but even without Ezra, I think it still makes sense as a thing to work on, just to get that economy event online as soon as possible, get that return on investment, and then by the time you unlock Ezra, you'll have another really good team. But you kind of have to split Ezra between this team and Rey. but even still is a very good option. Lord Vader, I would say this is another example of a farm you're close to, but maybe you don't need to prioritize, just because I'll go through them in a second, but you don't currently have the dark side clones, so you don't have the best team. And it would, at the moment, Lord Vader would really just add another decent team for GAC, which you don't really need. I still maintain that just setting the Stranger and Maul on defense will probably be enough to get you to Kyber. But yeah, so nice to have, of course, but not necessary. Leia's an interesting one, because she's quite often one of the first targets for most accounts for a GL, and you are very close to Leia, you're close to everything. But yeah, she's definitely one of the best GLs, so it is worth it just going for her. So compared to Lord Vader and JML, to other options, I would go for Leia before them, just because she is, I would say, is definitely a better all-round GL than both of them, but doesn't really have an economy event. She does have Ender Escalation, which really isn't that great, to be honest. So I would actually maybe put Leia a little bit further down the priority list than for most accounts, just because you already have a good amount of power, but would be worth going for just because she's so good. Maybe after the economy, like journey guides, I would then go for Leia, but yeah, definitely a good option. Balin, I mainly wanted to check Great Mothers. Balin himself, again, it's a case of nice to have, will help in GAC, but you'll have so many other teams that he wouldn't be priority number one for me. But I think it would still be a good idea to work on the Great Mothers, just because they're quite a low Zeta team, and especially if you're working on Peridea Patrol anyway for their assault battle, you could just plug them into this team with Night Sister, a Spirit, and you only need like 3 Zetas total. You don't 100% need the Omicron on Morgan for GAC, but might be nice to have. So I definitely factor in the Night Sister team, and they will help get you CT3 of the Fanatical Devotion. No, it's not called that. The Secrets and Shadows assault battle. So that a little bit of a return on investment and quite a low Zeta team. Balin, I would wait a bit, just because, yeah, I feel you don't need that many GAC teams. Bo-Katan, so obviously we have the Mandalorian Lightspeed token. So I'm just pausing because, so haven't unlocked Beskar armor yet, and we'll go into things like the Executor, so that would be blocking that. I think may as well wait until April and the Lightspeed tokens, not because you necessarily need to do that, just because you may as well, because there's other better things to be working on in the meantime. But once the Lightspeed tokens do come out at the end of April, it would be a nice addition, mainly for territory battles and maybe getting into a different guild. Jedi Master Mace Windu, just because I wanted to have a look at the dark side clones. Still a little bit away. You do have very good progress on Scorch, so I think this would be the type of account where you could go for Scorch and Tarkin to R9 for the raid, if you wanted to increase your raid score, and maybe look at getting into a different guild, because you will be getting if we go back to Hondo, 3.6 million if you take Hondo up to R9, and then R9 original Hondo, you can get 3.6 million. I think it is a bit of an annoying one to do, so you might want to take the rest of the team to R9 if you want to make your life easier. Obviously not necessary. And then you'll probably be able to get some sort of score with the rest. Probably not at the R7 level without Maz, but maybe at the R3 level. So looking about another million. So let's say it's like 4.5 million from unlocking Hondo. Then if we go back to here, Tarkin and Scorch, that would be another 3.6 million. So you'd be looking at, about 8 million. So you're really at that point you'll be, I think you already have 1 million at the moment, so looking at 9 million, that would probably be enough to get you into most guilds. At this point, even if a guild is maxing the raid, they're probably not going to be too concerned that you're just slightly below the average needed, and also you already have R7 Tarkin, so Tarkin Scorch I think could be a good option if you were looking to move up in guilds. Now let's move on to ships. So Leviathan of course is close. I think you are just finishing off TIE Dagger and this one. I think they're both hard mode farms, so you're probably, what is it, so I'm trying just thinking what's today's date. So today's the 19th. I think the Leviathan normally comes on the 20th, so I imagine you're just going to miss this unless you're spending right at the end. So but I would guess you'll be able to get the Leviathan for next time, so February 20th I think would be a good target. And yeah, this would be the one to focus on, just so you can easily get to number 1 in fleet and get those crystals. Yeah, won't need to work on sortie, so just, yeah, a bunch of R7s and R5s, which shouldn't really be an issue. You're also working on profundity. Again, have all of the relics. Even after you unlock Leviathan, still worthwhile doing this, just because there won't be any additional zetas you'll need to apply, and even if you don't want to 7-star the profundity straight away, would be nice just to get that unlocked and get those free shards each month. Quite bizarrely, Executor is the one you're furthest away from, and I think that's because you don't yet have a 7-star Beskar armor Mandalorian. You might have this ship at 7 stars already, but just waiting on that Beskar armor Mandalorian, and then just a couple of relics. I would, yeah, to be honest, I just wait until like the IG Lightspeed token comes out in March, just because you're actually closer to Profundity and Leviathan, so by the time you unlock those, Executor less needed. Of course, like the Profundity, still worthwhile to get unlocked and get those shards each month, but not the most pressing thing in the world. So I think there's just a few other things that I wanted to check. So the raid, if we go to order 66, yeah, so yeah, the 1.5 million I think about makes sense. Yeah, Tarkin Scorch would be the big improvement, and then Hondo. Aside from that, I don't really think it's worthwhile going for a Jedi Master Mace. Maybe once he becomes permanent in June and you can purchase them with Lightspeed tokens, might be worthwhile, but maybe not straight away. In terms of the rest of the clones, I guess you have two options here. You could either just start slow farming them in the background if you don't have much else to farm, maybe after you've done Hondo, or it should be that Lightspeed tokens get released a year after the marquees come out. So in about, they could be like May, June, these should be purchasable through Erodium Lightspeed tokens. I mean, it might not be exactly the case, but around then. So you could either wait for then to get these guys up at relics, or you could just slow farm them in the background and get them up the old fashioned way. I think that's really up to you in that case. Yeah, so yeah, I think you could really quite quickly start to push that sort of 8, maybe 9 million in the raid. If we hop over to your guild, so the raid is decent, but could be a little bit higher, could be a few more boxes. So this might be something that you think about increasing, or maybe changing up guilds. I like to check, are you an officer in this guild? Halloween, you're not. So yeah, maybe moving guilds could be an option. I always feel a little bit uncomfortable suggesting that, but for an account that's growing so quickly, that just tends to be the reality. Maybe changing guilds a few times. Yeah, so what else? One thing I wanted to look at is era units. So you are getting them up to at least 85, and 85 is the important one. Of course, you could, I think after the next marquee, push to 95, but I don't really know if that's worth it just because you're looking at a few extra relic levels, but the important thing is you're getting them at relics and with their zetas at era level 85, and you'll be getting a 7-star Maul, who we've already discussed, would make a pretty terrifying stranger team. So I think it does make sense to work on some of these teams once they become legacy units, just because you won't have to do that much more in terms of Zeta investment. It would just be a case of relics. So Darth Vader, Duel's End, of course, would be the obvious one. I guess we can check how you're doing on Empire. You will, of course, have these two. Mara Jade, you don't necessarily need the Zeta on her, but could be an option. Royal Guard and Tarkin, I think you already have as well. So definitely worth working on the new teams just to actually ease that Zeta deficit. Tavera units, let's go back. You also have Boba Fett, Sign of Django. I guess maybe wait to see how testing gets on for that team, but looks like it could be pretty good. So perhaps some relics on Asajj. Yoda and Chewie, Stormtrooper Luke, more niche uses. Like Stormtrooper Luke will be mostly in 3v3 after you unlock Leia. Inquisitor Barriss, I think wait and see what the big uses are, but I think the ones to focus on would be Asajj and Darth Vader. IG-90, I think you probably have the Lightspeed bundle, but maybe don't want to invest in, I think you do have the for Lightspeed bundle, but that could be another option. Again, wait and see on that case. Then of course the only other area of investment would be Relic Delta. I won't go into it too much, but this would be the sort of thing to do after the sort of resource teams that you're unlocking. Maybe if you're bottlenecked by Zetas, just to bring up some of the important relics. Not a whole lot standing out to me, but like the Hutt Cartel teams, characters like Hux, like characters in important GL teams that are R5 requirements are always good ones to get up to R7 just to add a little bit of protection to them. I'm sure there's a lot more, but those would be the important ones. So I think that's that in terms of the account. I'm now going to go away and put together a quick suggested plan, so I'll go do that now. Okay, so real quick, put this sort of plan together. This one of course is going to be a bit different to most because you have the majority of the relics and requirements already done, so this is more of an order I would go about things rather than more of a farming plan. And I would say the months are definitely maybe less important for this one. I would maybe think of this more of an order rather than the months per se, just because I'm not entirely sure how quickly you can get things like Zetas and Omicrons, what your pack buying is, that sort of thing. So definitely only a guide. So if we start with this month and we're getting towards the end of this month, final third of it, I would definitely just focus on finishing Jabba, which I think you're already doing. Of course you're close to a lot of GLs, but Jabba will be the quickest route to mods. Essentially you've only got a few relics to go, and Jedi Knight Luke of course, and Jedi Knight Luke will give you CT3 of the Ground War Assault Battle, so makes sense to me to not drop everything else but focus on this first. Then moving on, so starting to get quite packed at the pretty much the end of this month, start of February, the era units will become legacy characters in the game, and these are the ones, these three really, that I think would definitely, I wouldn't say definitely, that I think would be worth working on. Darth Vader and Maul for sure. For the other ones, I definitely wait around, see what other people are doing. I think just based on what you already have Sign of Django, so Asajj Ventress could be a nice option. And the good thing about working on the era units is that you already have the Zetas for them, and a lot of the teams you're using them in will already have the Zetas, so this will just be a case of adding relics to them, which I think would be good just to ease that Zeta bottleneck. But while you're doing that, of course, continue to work on the Stranger and Starkiller team. And I also think, so you've got a 6-star Scorch. This of course is very much optional depending on your strategy, but if you do want to increase your raid score, and because you're spending, you'll be able to increase your raid score quicker than most and maybe move up into a different guild, Tarkin and Scorch could be a very quick option. Already have R7 Tarkin and 6-star Scorch, so my guess is that you might already have this in mind just by what you're farming. So I think that would be a very quick win, and most of these other farms don't actually really require like relicking new characters or getting to that high relics. So yeah, I think that would be worthwhile doing quite soon. And then also, of course, Leviathan, that should be your first ship. That's not exactly that insightful, really. You're very close to Leviathan, just need to get 2 of those ships to R7. So I think to 7 stars, which will mean you'll miss the next run, which I think will be tomorrow, but you should be ready for the run in February. So I think that's definitely worth aiming for. Getting those daily fleet crystals as well would be important. Then moving on, in the background of all this, and I think what you're already doing, would be farming the Hondo requirements, again with that focus on the raid a bit, but also mostly for the Smugglers Run 3 event. So in quick succession you'll be finishing off Smugglers Run 2 and Smugglers Run 3 and maximizing your mod income, which will be the big bottleneck. And it's really just a case of the 6 new marquees, which you're already farming, and if you're refreshing these within a couple of months, you should hopefully be in the position of going hard for Hondo. I've also thrown in the Great Mothers here. They don't necessarily need to be here or anywhere, but I think if you are going to work on additional teams, I think this one would make sense, just because they don't require that many Zetas or Omicrons, and also can help with an assault battle a little bit, so there's a little bit of return on investment. So I think these make sense at some point if you're looking to deepen the roster. Then moving on, I think you could have a very fleet focused month, because you're just waiting on Beskar armor for Executor, and you're also very close to Profundity. Again, doesn't necessarily have to be exactly in this order, but I think while you're working through all of this and all of the Zetas, makes sense to just be working in the fleets in the background and getting them unlocked as soon as possible, just so that you can accumulate the shards passively over time. You can think of this as a kind of resource event. You're just getting them unlocked and then just sitting and collecting the shards. You of course won't need them because you have Leviathan, but as you start to move up in GAC and eventually get into Kyber, you will want the 3 fleets, of course, at some point. Yeah, especially higher level Kyber, it's really a necessity. So yeah, and then I've put in Leia here. Again, doesn't exactly have to be this, but if we think about all of the GLs that you're close to that don't have an economy event, so JML, Lord Vader, and Leia, and I guess C as well. I haven't even looked at C, just C should be a lower priority really. Leia would be the one to go for, just for her all-round power. Endor escalation, I guess, is nice, but really shouldn't be the deal breaker. So yeah, if you are looking to add another GL, have some Zetas at this point, because this shouldn't be too Zeta intensive, especially with the fleets. I think Leia would be the next best option in terms of a quick GL, as crazy as that is to say, because yeah, because in the background, I guess not even in the background, I mean, to be honest, I could very easily swap Leia and Ahsoka, but I've just put Leia here just because she's the closest. But really, if you're able to, I would do Ahsoka before Leia, and that is just because of her economy event. And I think the reason I put Ahsoka a little bit further back is that I would want a little bit more time to get closer to Ezra through the Conquest Proving Grounds. So that's, yeah, I'm remembering now, that's why I put Ahsoka after Leia. But if you do get Ezra sooner, then I'd move Ahsoka up in terms of priority, because again, you're very close to her requirements, and yeah, has that really good event as well. And then afterwards, it's either just going to be a case of knocking out all of the journey guides. I don't know why I put Starkiller here, you already have Starkiller, I'll remove that from the final graphic. But yeah, so things like Balin, things like Jar Jar, things that I would say are very PvP focused, even though you're close to, would be worthwhile just, I guess, doing after you complete the resource characters, as I would call them. And I think that seems to be what your focus is on already, which I think is a very good idea. So afterwards, it would either be swinging around and picking all of these guys up, but around this time, we will hopefully get an idea of what the next raid is, and I think that would probably be a very good idea to focus on that. It'll probably be very reliant on whatever the new era units are, which I imagine you'll be getting to relics anyway through the era system, but it would be a good idea to save up a lot of relic material, R9 and even R10, because who knows, there might be an R10 raid tier. So around this time, it might be worthwhile pivoting to whatever the new raid is, because an account like this, you should be able to max that quite quickly and then move into an even better guild at that point, because that is the time when guilds are really looking for good raid contributions. So yeah, that would be my rough plan. Also things like Bo-Katan and Reva, I think your guild is already getting a lot of Reva shards, so maybe by this point you would have unlocked Reva through that. Worthwhile doing just for the assault battle and good team in general. But all of these in the end, I would say wait and see what the game looks like, wait and see what the raid looks like, and maybe make a decision from there. So yeah, that should be everything. Thank you very much for letting me have a look at your roster, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Okay, we're on to the next roster review, and this one will be for LeiaBeBoushhie. They go by Gwen on Discord, so I'm probably just going to call them Gwen, because that's a bit of a tongue twister for me. So a bit of an overview. They provided a lot of really good context and really recent context, which is great. They recently updated this, which you don't have to do, but does help me a lot. So in terms of their spending style, they are, let's say, a sort of light to moderate spender, buying the passes, buying decent Lightspeed bundles, and Lightspeed bundles or Lightspeed tokens, £30 to £40 a month, dollars, willing to do packs on Zetas and Omis, and signal data, which looks like it's a bit of a bottleneck. Yeah, so they've recently updated this, which is great. Basically saying that all of the Lightspeed tokens, Lightspeed bundles have really changed things in terms of what their account can do and where they can go, but sort of looking or struggling with direction on that. So that's definitely something I'll be having a look at. So currently farming tickets for Leia, they have all of the requirements, and then moving on to Profundity, both of which sound like excellent ideas. They already have a real Zeta and Omicron deficit, and are close to a lot of other journeys, which we'll go into. In terms of conquest, they are just about to unlock Dark Side Vision Ray through Proving Grounds. I had a quick check, and they do have already a lot of Proving Grounds characters unlocked. As they've mentioned down here, they've had a bit of a 9 to 10 month absence, so I imagine are maybe missing some of the later conquest characters. I'm going to guess things like SM33 and Maz, Jocasta New maybe as well, just because they would have missed them through this absence. Getting 2 Gungan tokens through the Lightspeed, through the episode pass, so close to Jar Jar, and then also wondering if they should work on pirates and Dark Side clones. And then finally any relic delta considerations to make. Yeah, a lot on here, but I think we can have a look through all of this and come up with a bit of a suggested plan. Favorite game mode, GAC and Fleet, but likes to do everything. Potentially looking to put some Omicrons on TW teams. I can maybe have a quick look at that. In my main account is in a TW guild. I'm not going to give away any secrets in case someone happens to watch, but I can maybe give some sort of general suggestions and the accepted good TW Omicrons, and looking to maybe improve personal raid score, but their guild is already getting a really high box, so don't necessarily need to do that. That's great. So we'll move on to their account summary. So they've been playing, in terms of actual game days, nearly 3 years, but as I've mentioned and as they've mentioned, they've had at least one major break within that, so we'll have a slight gap in terms of some of the more recent stuff. GP is getting up there, so 10.6 million, part of a really big guild. I think this is the third The Republic guild I've reviewed in a row. I don't know if this is the world's largest alliance or there is just loads of different guilds called the Republic, but just, yeah, something I find a bit funny there. In terms of mod score, it's solid. They are a buyer of Lightspeed bundles, so this is always going to be a bit lower, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I'm sure they're working away on refreshes. They have Jabba thinking about pirates, so not too concerned about that. That's just a symptom of Lightspeed bundles, really. Nothing really you can do to get around that without spending an ungodly amount on mod packs, which aren't super worth it. Raids, as I mentioned, the guild is hitting the second last box. I don't know if they're pushing for the final box. I think they're about 80 or maybe 100 million away. I think it's 520 maybe. So they could be pushing. I don't know. It doesn't sound like he's under any pressure to increase the raid score, so maybe they're not pushing for the final box, which I think is fair enough. It's still a lot of Mark III that they're getting, and especially we're getting past the halfway mark as well. So, and Return of the Empire is also very good, so 38 stars. So a little bit of extra crystals and gear coming from that. In terms of their own performance, Chromium 3, they have recently rejoined, so I'm sure an account like this will be able to climb up relatively quickly back into Rhodium, and who knows, maybe Kyber at some point. Fleet rank, I don't know why I left this at 5. I think this is maybe from the previous graphic. Let me update this. There, didn't want to shortchange them with fleet rank. So rank number 1, they have Leviathan, I believe. Colosseum rank, they mentioned below 90, but perhaps, I think they were chatting in Discord, it might even be below 60 at this point, but nonetheless, they're getting a decent amount of Colosseum era currency, which is good, and we'll be able to spend on Erodium Lightspeed tokens. I think a guild this size, and I haven't checked, but I'm sure they're doing well in terms of like Zepho and Mandalore, so Kyrotech probably isn't going to be that much of an issue, so Erodium Lightspeed tokens probably a very good use for an account like this. Very decent crystal income. The only thing that will really increase it at this point is GAC, which I'm sure they'll start to climb up. Guild is pretty active, so I called it frequency of 6.5 just because sometimes every 6 days, sometimes every 7 days, but it's probably closer to 6. So pretty much the most Mark II they can get. I think they can move up maybe one personal raid box to max out the Mark II, and then after that it's looking at adding up the Mark III. And they did ask about potentially increasing personal rewards, so we'll maybe have a look at that to see if there's any quick wins that could be made in this. For assault battles, they have pretty much everything. The only thing they don't have is this at CT3. I'm going to have a look to see if they have Riva or could unlock that through the guild at some point, but everything else is CT3. They did mention one of them I think this one is only at 2 stars, which is probably a bit of a pain, but I'm sure like through Great Mothers or something they'll be able to get to CT3. R7 for both of these. This might be something worth looking at. Is it worth pushing any of these to R9? I have some early thoughts on that, but we'll go through these two. In terms of the GLs, they have Jabba, but the point of the game where they might start to be looking at Hondo or Glatt. So that's the summary. Let's hop on over to the account. All right, so here is their account on SWGOH.gg. They have 6 GLs, pretty much max, no real issues in terms of relic levels there. Of course, as you start to get more R9s, things like Rey, even SOKR can be good options. In terms of other stuff, the count's probably a little bit too big for me to go through all of the roster like this, but have Jedi Knight Cal Kestis, Malicos or GAC, have Ezra online, which would be great in Rey. Then also, yeah, things like Malgus, they have Leviathan, pretty solid thing. R8 Savage Oppress, which is a lot, but I'm sure is valuable in GAC. Like Chrysanthemum is slightly less relic up. The Jabba the Hutt team mentioned Relic Delta. This is always an area that could be improved. Things like Hondo, yeah, and I think we'll save the rest to go through specific farms. First of all, I'm just going to check conquest units just to show what they have. So they have some of the older conquest units probably unlocked through Proving Grounds, missing more of the latest ones. I say they have the important ones, the ones that really feed into either unlocking GLs or being very necessary lifters for GLs. So that would be the Leviathan one, or GLs or legendary ships. They have Leviathan, they have Cat, who's a requirement and a lifter. They have Ben Solo, and they have Ezra, who's a lifter. The only, I guess, well, there's obviously a lot of decent ones still to go. The main one would be Bane. Obviously that's not required for anything, but in terms of just overall good performance, it doesn't get much more efficient than Bane, but I'm sure they're very well aware of that and working towards that, and they're going to get Darkside Rey, which will lift their SOKR team soon, so that is great to know. Okay, so they mentioned a bunch of farms that they're working on, so we're just going to go through those and all of the potential ones. There is a lot that they could be focusing on. So first of all, Leia, they've got the requirements and they're just doing the tickets, so nothing really to look at here. Mentioned doing Profundity next. They're very close, of course, just 2 relics and then some higher relics, Relic 9, Relic 8. All of the ships are done, so this is definitely worthwhile. Another thing to bear in mind with this roster is they mentioned Zetas and Omicrons as an issue, which is, yeah, all the more reason to focus on this, because what you could do, yes, this team is good in, or I'd say is decent in GAC with his Omicron and Zetas, but not 100% necessary. There's definitely more powerful ones you could be going for instead. What you could do is, because you're unlocking Leia, Adrad and Jin are really good 4th and 5ths in the Leia team, so you could apply, I think, just the Zeta, I think it's a Zeta that stops Jin from dying if Adrad is still alive, and then I think just that Zeta. Jin has, I think, an okay Zeta, maybe not 100% necessary, so that'd be a nice way just to save on Zetas and Omicrons, is not investing too much in this team after you unlock them and get into relics, but of course you can still take advantage of their ships. They also mentioned Jar Jar, so it looks like they've already invested, I'm going to guess, Rhodium Lightspeed token and the Kyber Lightspeed token they got through the Maul event, just because this is Relic 6. I might be wrong there, but that looks like the case. And then they're waiting on the 2 Gungan Lightspeed tokens to unlock Jar Jar, which will just bring them there. So at that point, yeah, worthwhile working on Jar Jar. Very good, versatile GAC and TW team will help just fill out the roster as they move up into Rhodium. And Kyber will require a fair amount of Zetas is the only thing. This doesn't show Zetas, does it? No. But that is something to bear in mind. I think because of this, yes, finish Jar Jar, but I maybe wouldn't work on too many more of these like specific like PvP teams that are very efficient in terms of relics, but require a lot of Zetas and Omicrons, because I'm going to guess that those are going to be more of your bottlenecks than Zetas and Omicrons at the moment. So other things to check. So Pirate King Hondo, they asked about working on him. This was fairly interesting. So it looks like they have pretty much everything apart from Churret, aside from the 6 new marquees. So because of that, they will be quite a bit off still. So I guess it's a question of, do they wait for these guys to become accelerated to start farming, or do they just start and try get Hondo as soon as possible? It's a tricky one. I guess it really depends on energy use. At this point, you've probably farmed a lot of the other characters for requirements and stuff, so it probably doesn't matter too much that they're not accelerated. So maybe you could just make a start on them. Maybe they're not going to be priority number 1, but just farm them up in the background. Obviously, if any of them are Cantina, hold off on those, but it could be worthwhile background farms just because you have the rest of the requirements at relics, really. Of course, there'll be some relic 9s, but again, I don't think relicking will really be the bottleneck. You're getting a lot of Mark 3 currency through your guild, so I wouldn't be too scared of going for things like relic 9s. So yeah, I think this could be a good long-term option just to work away in the background while you focus on other things. You probably, if you do it that way, you probably wouldn't get them ready for the raid, so this probably wouldn't be one of the teams to improve that personal score, because that might just be a little bit too inefficient to do it for the raid. I'd only recommend it if, yeah, I'd say for the really big spenders, in terms of like they can like double or triple refresh or spend crystals on them to really get them up quickly. For an account like this, I think it might still be worthwhile just doing it in the background. And the other thing to bear in mind, it's not a deal breaker, but you won't have SM33 and Maz. Not the biggest issue in the world for the Hondo team itself. SM33 isn't really necessary for the Hondo team, but missing out on Maz will mean that you don't get the benefit of like another good secondary team that you get from doing this farm, which would be Maz and Kix and Nathano. So maybe another reason to hold off a bit. Well, I guess the issue with getting Maz is she's not even in Proving Grounds yet, so even if you do wait 6 months, you still wouldn't have unlocked Maz, I would guess. So yeah, maybe that isn't the most pressing thing, but either way, maybe a background farm. You mentioned the clone troopers. I've just brought up Jedi Master Mace Windu because for requirements, again, a little bit far away in terms of the farming. We just had additive drops. There was something else with, oh yeah, there's nothing new, but someone in my guild mentioned, oh, you use the Empire Lightspeed token on a clone trooper, which for some reason had never crossed my mind. I don't think of them as Empire units, which of course they are. So that could be something to think about. I'll maybe have a look at other uses of that Empire Lightspeed token, but that could be something to really kickstart. Maybe put it on Scorch and you can go for the Tarkin Scorch thing if you really want to increase your raid score. That's an easy way to get 3.6 million, and that can maybe be all you do in terms of increasing raid score, and then farm these guys in the background. That could be a decent option. Lord Vader, so you're working on the Lord Vader clones obviously would want Lord Vader as well, and are very close. You are very close to Lord Vader. One relic really. We are getting a Bounty Hunter Lightspeed token end of March, which you might not have many other good uses for, so this could be a possibility just to get the free relics. So yeah, it's an interesting one because you're so close. Like, you could do this probably within weeks, I would guess, but then you've got Lord Vader, not a great team. Like, I don't even think you have Maul, maybe, which was part of his older team. So even though you're so close, might not be worth going for him straight away, just because you'll have to apply 6 Zetas to him, and you don't have a lot of Zetas at the moment. So maybe something to line up with getting these clone troopers when I go through the plan. Yep. So Ahsoka. So as usual, when I've been going through the rosters, Ahsoka always tends to be kind of close. And you are over the big hurdle of Commander Ahsoka Tano, who is a conquest character. So after that, you're looking at 3 relics. There is a droid Lightspeed token coming out at the end of next month, I want to say. And of course, you're going to have to do some like Relic 8s and Relic 9s. But again, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, because you have Mark 3, and also it's not always the worst thing to spend a bit longer on a slightly more difficult farm when you're bottlenecked by Zetas and Omicrons anyway. That's the approach I always took on my bigger account, because for example, you'd be closer for going for Lord Vader than you would be for Ahsoka, but Ahsoka has more value, and this is just going to increase your Zeta bottleneck anyway, so may as well, while you're farming up those Zetas, to work on this anyway, just because it's going to add more value. It slightly, in a way, lessens the bottleneck for Zetas, just because you're not bringing up teams as quickly, if that makes sense. So I think you're definitely at the point where it's worth working on the things that are impactful and valuable rather than the things that are just quicker to get, would be my advice. Bo-Katan, of course, Mandalorian Lightspeed token, probably worth waiting until then. And I guess it depends on would your guild be asking for this? I imagine they might already be unlocking Mandalore based on their size, but never hurts to get to Balin. So I'm actually more interested in just the Night Sisters and Balin as a whole. I think by going straight for Balin, you're going to run into similar issues with Zetas and Omicrons. You mentioned like already going for like Darkseid Rey, who needs Omicrons. Balin will need Omicrons. You're close to Starkillers, we mentioned in a bit, so would be good maybe. But I think even without going for Balin, going for Night Sisters would be good, because they don't need that many Zetas or Omicrons to be really good. You already have the Peridia Patrol boys, and it would just be a case of 3 Zetas, 1 on Morgan, 2 on Great Mothers, and then, to be honest, you could ignore Omicrons on them for a little bit, or for a while. The Omicron on Morgan is decent, but I wouldn't say 100% necessary. It's still a very potent team in GAC and also in TW. Of course, you could apply 2 TW Omicrons on Great Mothers, but again, not 100% necessary, and is very good in most game modes. So I think would be a nice team to work on, just due to the slightly less Zetas needed for this team. But Balin as well, at that point you might be getting close, but again, Zetas and Omicrons might be the issue. Same with Starkiller, you are much closer to Starkiller. Similar issue. I wonder, I didn't have time to ask this, but I wonder, is the Stranger feasible to unlock? I would imagine not if you just recently joined, literally in the last like month or so. Yeah, so again, this is very similar to Balin, would be a nice add, but I'd probably still put it on the plan somewhere, but I wouldn't put it as number 1 priority, just because you're just going to be adding to your Zeta and Omicron bottleneck if you go for Balin, and if you go for Starkiller, and if you're finishing off Leia, you're finishing Darkseid Rey, so that would really just amplify that issue. And yeah, that's it in terms of the journey guides. Let's hop back on over to the roster. And there's a few other things I wanted to check. The first one is Reva. So do you have, I don't know why I keep doing that, typing in Inquisitorius. You do have Reva. Again, maybe adding to the Zeta crunch. I would guess, do you have the rest of Inquisitorius actually? Because they are coming through Lightspeed tokens anyway. No, which is good. So you'll be able to take advantage of those. Yeah, I think Reva would be decent option because you'll be able to knock Grand Inquisitor. So we'll be fairly Zeta heavy, but you won't have to put Grand Inquisitor's lead on. Or I guess you might do if your guild probably won't need to unlock Reva through territory battles, so you could ignore the lead on Grand Inquisitor. I think you can get away with just 2 Zetas on Reva. That's what I've done on my main account. And then also you can get away with just 1 Omicron on Reva. Again, always better with more, but it's a way to save. Same with Grand Inquisitor. You can get away with, I think, just 1 if you're looking for TW Omicrons. His one that has the insta kill can be decent, although I find less and less useful. I feel using that to go against less Jedi teams these days, but that would be a decent one. Yeah, and of course you're getting the Zetas for the rest of the team, working on Marok as well for Balin. So yeah, I think definitely worthwhile working on Reva, maybe over things like Balin or Starkiller. I think Reva, I guess people would disagree. I think Reva for sure is more useful than Starkiller in GAC. I don't know if that's controversial, especially if you don't have like the Stranger. Then I think definitely Reva. Balin is probably about a similar level, I would imagine. So yeah, that would be worthwhile. Other things to look at. So Relic Delta, you mentioned. So a nice exercise to do anytime you do find yourself stuck on Zetas, which I've actually just been doing for the last few months in my main account. I've been holding off on unlocking things like Balin, and also not unlocking but putting Zetas on gas on my main account, and sort of catching up a little bit with Zetas. The 10 Zetas we get from the episode quest are helpful in order to do that, and instead putting a lot more of my resources into relicking up existing teams rather than unlocking new teams that could be helpful but will require more Zetas, which is the issue. So I don't know if straight away, but if you do find yourself in a real crunch there, and you mentioned Relic Delta, definitely worthwhile. Like, great places to start would be Ray and SWGOH. The other ones less so. I'd only do Jabba if you want to do that R9 territory battle mission, which I imagine you might not want to. I don't even know if your guild would be getting to that planet in time. But Ray for sure, great R9. SWGOH probably less so, but it's good to keep him alive a little bit longer. And of course Relic Delta will help a little bit more. And yeah, as I've discussed before, you're getting Mark 3, so worthwhile just saving up for the higher relics rather than relicking up new teams. I think can quite often be a good approach. Other uses could be like Ezra up to 8 at least, like getting somebody like your strong attackers like Malicos up to R8, Ben solo as well would be a good option. And also not really for Relic Delta, but where are they? Like Padawan, like your assault battle teams. I think for sure Duel of the Fates up to R9 while you catch up on things like Zetas, just to get that extra return on investment. And if you do have time or resources later, Peridia Patrol as well can be a good option. But that's definitely, would be the one to do first. Other Relic Delta options, things like raising the floor for like the teams that are maybe going up against GLs or sort of GL teams. Things like Jedi Knight Revan to R7 could be a good option. I mentioned before Chrysanthemum and even Boushh, having them both at R8 is decent. Chrysanthemum to R9 if possible, but again, these would only really be needed once you're starting to get back into higher levels of Kyber, I would say, but are good areas to invest in when it comes to Relic Delta. What else stands out? Is there anything glaring in terms of this should be low? Darth Treya, I wouldn't say normally be cut for an account like this, but you already have Savage at R8, and now after Relic Delta, I used to quite often use like Treya against like Jedi Master Mace Windu and Gungans as well. This might be an issue with the attacker crons on top of things, but I'm now absolutely terrified of taking my R5 Treya up against Jedi Master Mace Windu, just because he can get absolutely just demolished, because quite often you're going up against like R9 Jedi Master Mace Windu because of the raid. So that could be maybe an R7 option, just to bring it up on level with Savage. Other bits and pieces. Nothing's like things like Zori. It's more just survivability. Could maybe be R5, but it depends how much use you're getting out of that team. Hermit Yoda again for the JML team. I wouldn't say it's #1 priority, but just in terms of survivability. I wonder how's like your first order team? Yeah, so things like Hux, like characters on your Galactic Legend teams, especially since you'll be getting Darkside Ray, good to get them up to level 7 just to protect them a little bit more, because at R5, if you go up against R9 teams, that is a huge Relic Delta, and they could just get swiped away with AoEs and stuff like that. So I guess identifying those like R5 characters on your GL teams would definitely be worthwhile. Yes, I think that's probably, I'm sure there's more, but I won't go into it too much. The other thing you mentioned was raid, so let's have a look at that. Order 66. Right, so you're doing 1.5 million, I think now. What would be ways to increase that personal score? The quickest way, I don't know if easiest, but definitely quickest, would be R9, Tarkin, and Scorch. You could use that Empire Lightspeed token on Scorch just to get him straight away, only at 3 stars, so very good use. Get him to relics and get both of them up to relic 9, and you'll be able to do 3.6 million with them. So you're probably already doing like 300,000 score with him at the moment, so that's a 3.3 million increase. That will increase you quite a lot of personal raid boxes. Let me just check how much. Yeah, so it'll be about, depending where you're at the moment, about 4 personal raid boxes, which would be about 400, maybe a little bit less, Mark 3 each month. I think that would still be worthwhile. And Tarkin is required R7 for Lord Vader, I think, and Scorch only requires R5 for Jedi Master Mace, but he is the tank in the team, so having him at R9 for that team anyway would be good. And also Lord Vader likes to have high relic characters on his team anyway, so really it's only Tarkin would be the thing you're going out of your way to relic up to R9. In terms of other options, you could then also go for like you could do it with the Clone Trooper 3 at R9. At this point, I don't really think that's worthwhile. I think you should really just be looking for what are the quick and cheap things I can do to increase my score slightly, especially if your guild isn't asking for you to increase your score. I would maybe just do that. If they are asking, if they're wanting to push to max, then R9 clones, so that would be Disguise, Clone Trooper, Apple, and C would be the way to go. That's another 3.6, but if they aren't asking, I probably wouldn't do that at this point. Other things might just be maybe getting Keller and Beck up to R7 because that is his requirement level, and you might be able to push a little bit higher either as a solo or as part of a higher level Jedi Vanguard team. Might be able to eke out a few 100,000 extra through that. And also like Plo Koon requirement for Ahsoka that may or may not be on the plan, and that could be a way to, yeah, Plo Koon less so, but Keller and Beck for sure is very good in the raid. Other options, yeah, nothing really stands out. That would really be my only suggestion. Tarkin and Scorch using that Empire Lightspeed token. I guess what we can do, is there any other uses of that Empire Lightspeed token that would be missing out on? Barriss won't be eligible, so it is really just the clone troopers would be your really only good options. Oh, what am I? Yeah, I guess, oh god. Ignore, I mentioned that a few times in this video. I may not be able, I probably won't be able to edit it out, but yeah. So obviously Tarkin Scorch won't be purchasable with that Lightspeed token because he's not been in the game for a year yet. Anyone watching this, yeah, I realized eventually that was the case, so forget all of that about using Scorch as the Lightspeed token. I think I saw someone mention that in the guild or in the video, and I thought, oh, that's a great idea, but it's not possible. They won't be included because they have not been out for a year. I mean, if they are included, then great, but I don't expect them to be, because usually it's only characters that are legacy and have been out for at least a year, which they won't be. Ignore that. Even still, if you are looking for an easy raid score increase, I'd still recommend working on Scorch. It'd just take a little bit longer because you're going to have to farm his shards and won't be able to use any Lightspeed tokens on him. God, I think I mentioned that a lot of times in this video. Apologies. I eventually realized. So yeah, that would still be the option. In terms of the Empire Lightspeed token, there's probably not a lot of good uses at this point. I mean, if they do appear, great. If not, yeah, you might even just want to use it for Zetas, to be honest. Like maybe something like Moff Gideon or Scout Trooper. Not the most useful Zetas if you don't have the Dark Trooper. Yeah, maybe Moff Gideon could maybe be an option. Otherwise, just like Stormtrooper, not that useful, or maybe one of Imperial Super Commander or Gar Saxon. Never mind. All right, let's move on. Right, so another thing I wanted to check is era units. So let's get rid of this. Yep, so you've been getting to 4 stars, which is good. You've got Maul. In terms of ones to maybe work on afterwards, do you have Afra? I might check on that. If you have Afra, IG-90 could be a good option, especially if you're looking to apply TW Omicrons. Aside from that, it would really be maybe Inquisitor Barriss. Maybe wait around to see. People are still a little unsure on what her best use would be, but could be in the Malicos team, could be with some other Inquisitors, but Darth Vader as well would be good. You're working on Mara Jade. Emperor Palpatine, you'll eventually unlock the Stranger. That might be a while, to be honest, but at that point you can then slot in Darth Vader. So yeah, maybe not too many things you need to be really focusing on. Maybe IG-90, depending on, do you have Afra? I think you do. You have her requirements at the very least. Am I blind? Just search for her. Where are you? Oh, you have her unlocked. So yeah, that could be, again, it's a whole Zeta thing, but her Omicrons are only for 5v5s or half price, so that could maybe be an option. But again, I'd wait to see how other people get on with that team before investing. So yeah, I think that's everything in terms of the account. I'm now going to head on over to a plan that I'm just going to put together now. So let's do that. All right, so I've scrambled together a bit of a plan. Of course, this is only a suggestion. Specifically for this account, I think you can go in a lot of different directions and have slightly different orders, but this is just what I would personally go for, just due to what I like to do, which is try focus on the efficiency side of things and the resource side of things before like more GAC specific teams. But if that is your interest and your focus, then of course change things around. So this is just what you're currently working on, due to unlock Darkside, right? I think next conquest you said, or maybe the one after, and finishing Leia's ult and of course her Zetas. So yeah, definitely worthwhile finishing. And then, as you mentioned, I do think it makes sense to go straight into Profundity. And as I discussed earlier in the video, I would be very stingy about what Zetas you apply to that Rogue One team. I would maybe only apply the one Zeta to Radis, the one that helps keep Jhin alive, because then you can use Radis and Jhin in your new Leia team. And I would maybe ignore the rest for now until you get more Zetas and Omicrons. I also think it might be worthwhile working on the Inquisitors, because of course we'll be getting those Lightspeed tokens, which will help you unlock Grand Inquisitor. You already have Reva at Relics, and the good thing about the Inquisitors is you don't need a lot of Omicrons. You will need a few Zetas, I think 2, maybe 3 if you really want, but you could get away with 2 on Reva, and I think you could also get away with 2 on GI, and then 1 Omicron maybe on Reva, and 1 if you want to do a TW one on GI. So you can be quite light with the Zetas, and of course the rest of the team already have Zetas, so could be a good option, and is just a very powerful all-round really good team in pretty much all game modes still. So would be my personal preference over going for something like the Gungans, just because I think they have the slight edge overall. Gungans aren't too far behind, but I would, just due to the less Zetas you'll have to apply and because they're a slightly better team, I would prioritize them, but that of course is due to one's preference. Then moving on, I put again a slightly lighter month in terms of Zetas. As I mentioned, Great Mother's team is actually quite Zeta light, so 3 in total you'll need, and that will help add another GAC team, and yeah, a team that doesn't really require any Omicrons if you don't want to. It's still really good, and you just apply some more relics to Night Sister. I have 5 here, but I'd really get Night Sister to at least 7. So yeah, even if you don't go for Balin straight away, I think going for the Night Sisters would make sense, just given your account situation. Then I've gone back and forth on this a lot. Then I would maybe use the time to work on some R9s or Relic Delta in general. I haven't put all of the or any of the Relic Delta recommendations, but I've gone through that earlier in the video. Like these 2 for their assault battle could be a good option, or perhaps Tarkin and Scorch. I was much more keen on this earlier when I think had the false assumption that you could use the Empire Lightspeed token on Scorch, which I don't think will be the case. I mean, maybe, but I really don't think that will happen. And because of that, the issue is that it will take a while to farm up Scorch. It will still be your quickest route, I think, to more raid score, apart from a few relics on the Jedi Vanguard, but that won't increase things that much. So really, if you did want to really increase your raid score, this would be the way to do it, but it's still going to take like 3 months if you refresh Scorch every day. So, and by that time we'd be looking at least 3 months left in the raid, maybe more, as some people are speculating. But yeah, it's your quickest route, but I don't think it's still that quick, unfortunately. Other things like Jedi Master Mace and like the Bad Batch, that will probably take even longer and aren't that, especially the Bad Batch, definitely don't do that unless maybe they come with amazing Lightspeed tokens or something, I don't know. But even then, Zetas, yeah, probably not. So yeah, quickest route. I'd only do this if your guild is really asking for this, would be my advice. The Mark 3 increase would be nice, but you're getting so much of it anyway through your guild that it's not that much of like a percentage increase over what you already have. So this would be very much dependent on what the guild's asking for. And then while you're doing all of this, I would also have an eye as Ahsoka for your next GL. Even though she's not your closest GL, as I mentioned, I think it's still worth working on her, just because you're going to be bottlenecked by Zetas and Omicrons anyway. And she has a resource event, which is great and always good to get as early as possible. It does require a lot of R9s again, but again, that shouldn't be too much of an issue for an account like this. So I think in terms of the next GL to go for after Leia, I think Ahsoka makes sense. Like perhaps farm the clones in the background, although really, if you're not going to farm them up for the raid, I may even wait until they become accelerated, and at that point you'd be able to use like Lightspeed tokens on them, presumably. Yeah, I think you will. Once like sort of June, July, when they've been out for a year, you could then use like Erodium or Kyber Lightspeed tokens on them. That would really accelerate things. I'd maybe just do that, to be honest, instead of working away on them. I'd maybe work away on slightly newer characters, like we'll go into in a second. Then I think it's a case of filling in some of the other journey guide characters. Of course, you could do this earlier if you happen to get more Zetas, I don't know, through packs or CG gives us some, that sort of thing. Finishing Jar Jar, you already have all of the requirements, so it'll just be a case of Jar Jar himself and the Zetas, and then Bo-Katan Mandalore for the TB mission, and also very good team overall. But I guess it's another thing, if the guild isn't asking for this, then you could maybe just do Balin instead. Probably a similar power level at this point. Again, please don't shout at me if that's not quite 100% correct, but yeah. So yeah, if the guild wants Bo-Katan Mandalore, then definitely prioritize her, because you'll be a bit closer to her than Balin. But equally, if you want to go for Balin or Starkiller instead, like these things can be like subbed in and out quite easily, because you're about the same distance away from all of them. That's why I put this, if Zetas or Omis, then go for it. But you'll also be, I don't know, you might be unlocking Bane as well, and then I would put Bane as a higher priority over these, just because he's his own team. But we'll still need some Zetas, some Omicrons, and maybe some other conquest units you might be unlocking as well. I can't think of ones that would be so impactful. But yeah, so this is always Zeta and Omicron dependent. And while you're doing all of this, I would maybe recommend just working away at the pirates in the background, and sort of getting there, farming up the newer marquees. They're all farmable now. I think that would be, while you're bottlenecked by everything else and the Zetas and stuff, I think would make sense to go for this, for the mods. Because it's a new character, won't be a Lightspeed bundle. I guess that's the other thing you've mentioned, that you buy Lightspeed bundles as well, so things like Hondo would be a bit protected from that. So I think it makes sense to work away in the background while you're doing all of this, have these be your farms, and then by the time you're done with this, it might not be these months exactly, this is just a rough estimate, then you'll be able to start putting relics on the pirates, which would be great. And I'm sure you don't have that many like normal or fleet energy farms that you need to be doing anyway, so it makes sense to use that on these guys. And I'm sure you're not hurting for Chirotech either, so definitely makes sense for me anyway to do that in the background, and then unlock Hondo at some point in the future. Might be June, probably later, but yeah, just work away on that. So that is, that's the video, that's the review. Thank you very much for letting me review your account, and yeah, I'll see you next time.